Sunsets and kites, scatterings of light and dark in poems, songs and essays, written and narrated by Flloyd Kennedy. Dedication. To my beloved sons, Ian and Roderick, who continue to inspire and educate me as they have done for as long as I've known them. I've been thinking. What time is it? I am haunted by my present. It ghosts me. The past is a place that keeps me from disappearing into non-existence. We are always in the future. Everything we see or hear has already occurred. To others, we're always in the past. No one is an island, but we are all alone, nevertheless. And somewhere, always out of reach, because of course it's in the fourth dimension, there is an antimatter factory. There, clocks are made, defining that which doesn't matter. They tick and click each second into and out of existence in a single instant. Here, in our earthly 3 dimensions, we clutch at moments, hours, years, tripping unknowingly through the seconds, failing to celebrate each eventuality even as it dawns into being and dissolves. If I were a fly, living at speeds unimaginable, I would capture those seconds, rich and random. I would wonder at the sluggishness of humanity, pondering aimlessly round and round, always ignorant of the wonder, the magnificence of each unending, momentous, instantiated blending of time, space, and what really matters. I have a theory. Big is not necessarily bold. More is not necessarily better. Growth is not necessarily healthy. Uncertainty is not necessarily the same as insecurity. Borders are not necessarily threatening. And democracy is not a system, it's a process. Men are not necessarily macho. Women are not necessarily caring. Gender is not necessarily a status. Race is not necessarily a thing. Variety is not necessarily the spice of life. Pain is not necessarily to be avoided. Novelty is not necessarily to be pursued. Sadness is not necessarily the same as depression. And democracy is not a system, it's a process. Beauty is not necessarily in the eye of the beholder. Posing does not necessarily make you look good. Shouting does not necessarily make you bolder. Whispering cannot necessarily protect you from being found out. Worrying does not necessarily save the farm, nor does worrying necessarily do any harm. And democracy is not a system, it's a process. 2 giant man-babies playing in seclusion does not necessarily pose a threat to world peace. 3 giant man-babies working in collusion does not necessarily mean life as we know it will cease. Innumerable giant man-babies afflicted with self-delusion does not necessarily require us all to acquiesce in an end to democracy as we know it, because democracy is not a system sufficient unto itself that can be destroyed. It's a process that continues necessarily, if we all agree, to work really, really hard at it. The Alpha Theatre in Tel Aviv continues to work with both Israeli and Palestinian theatre artists under the direction of Professor Emeritus Avraham Oz in the Department of Hebrew and Comparative Literature, University of Haifa, in
Sample complete. Ready to continue?